Welcome back to Geek Channel 8. I'm Eric.
And I'm well.
Part of our series on Frankenstein around the world, we are looking at Japanese Frankenstein movies. Today on the show, War of the Gargantuas.
Da, da, da. I was like, hey, it's cold outside. I should work on my greenhouse. So I've been working on my greenhouse. I should have done that when it was warm outside. It's okay though. I enjoy myself. And the chickens keep coming wandering in, which is fair because it was originally for them and it will be for them again once it's up and running.
Don't count your chickens before they've hatched.
It's funny because actually I know a lot of people who are like, hey, Will, if my chickens don't work out, would you take them? I'm like, yes, yes, I will.
Oh, now you're taking in random chickens?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We,
Okay. All
we
right. So the last time we did one of these shows, you talked about making rice and eggs.
mhm.
Did you use eggs from your own chickens?
Well, Eric, I'm going to be honest with you. My chickens are like 7, 8, maybe 9 years old. They don't make eggs that often.
Well, what use are they?
They make really good compost. And
Oh, their
yeah,
bones make good compost after you've deep fried them.
no, Eric, they're these these chickens are our friends. They're not food.
Chickens are tasty.
They are. Even chickens agree with that.
All right. Well, chickens are the closest living relative to dinosaurs. And I'm not going to go back to dinosaurs because we did a big series on dinosaurs. But I'll just say dinosaurs are not that different from giant monsters. And we have got a giant monster rally for you today.
Oh yeah.
War of the Gargantuas from 1966. Let's give a little background to what was going on in 1965 to 1966.
Yeah, this was interesting. With Japan in particular, there was kind of disastrous. I'm going to focus on that a little bit. So to start out with, the All Nippon Airways Flight 60 from Sapporo Tourist Airport, sorry about the pronunciation, to Tokyo Haneda Airport. Well, essentially it crashed, sank, all 133 occupants died. This was the first of a total of 5 airline disasters that year. Apparently, after that, demand for domestic airline flights went down. So, this is the background to the monster movie that we were about to watch. But that was not all. There was other stuff that was going on that was kind of hardcore. Japan always has to deal with typhoons. There was both Kit, Helen, and Ida. All told, there were over 1,000 deaths between the three of those. There was a huge hotel fire and also another large fire in Mizawa City. And also a couple earthquakes because these are the disastrous things. Now, larger context, let's back up. There's wars going on. That's always the case. There's a lot of coups. But in particular, this was the beginning of the Cultural Revolution in China. So, and at the same time, really we're deep into the Vietnam War. President Johnson is sitting down with his counterpart from South Vietnam to talk about the resolution. And in the United States, it's still very controversial. There was an elected official in Georgia who was not allowed to be seated because he was anti-war. They did not let him take his seat in government. Just mostly lots of crazy bad stuff. But the Beatles did visit Japan at that time, and overall, this was considered to be like the awakening type period of their. We when I was growing up in the '80s, by that point, they were like this tiger economy that was like everything cool was made there. They were going to dominate the world. This is where this was starting. Very much go business time.
August 8th of 1965 Frankenstein versus Baragon was released. That was what we did last show. And then July 31st of 1966, almost a year later, Frankenstein's Monsters, Sanda versus Gyra, was released in Japan. It would eventually be released July 29th, 1970, in the US as The War of the Gargantuas.
Oh, by the way, I just want to note also 1966. I don't know if it's the same monster, but it seems to be Gamera there was a movie released, Gamera versus Baragon, and so maybe they used them.
Well, Gamera is actually a rival studio to
Yeah, so
Toho.
I wasn't sure how that works because the Baragon monster looks a lot like the one in the other one, but I don't know. Maybe rip off. We got Swamp Thing, we got Man Thing. We got stuff like that. So whatever.
Hmm,
Anyway, just thought it was interesting. It's pretty. It's the second in the Gamera series, and I thought it might be related.
interesting. Well, The War of the Gargantuas was the third and last co-production between Toho and Henry G. Stapperstein's UPA. The film was originally intended to be a sequel to Frankenstein versus Baragon. It was announced as the Frankenstein Brothers, then the Two Frankensteins, then Frankenstein versus Frankenstein, then Frankenstein's Decisive Battle, and Frankenstein's Fight. All of those titles they went through during the script writing process before it was finalized in April of 1966. So Saperstein originally hired Tab Hunter to replace Nick Adams, who did such a good job in the last one, for no reason I could find in my research. I have no idea why he decided to go with Tab Hunter instead of Nick Adams, but Hunter himself was then replaced by Russ Tamblyn. Okay, Russ Tamblyn is an interesting part of this story. So Honda was under a lot of pressure at this time because late in 1965, Toho Limited had informed him that his contract wasn't going to be renewed. So he'd be directing on a case by case basis.
Oh.
Adding to his frustration, by all accounts, Tamblyn was difficult to work with. Tamblyn often did the opposite of Honda's instructions and improvised his lines without Honda's approval. Seiji Tani, Honda's assistant, mentioned on set disputes between Tamblyn and Honda, with Tamblyn often doing the exact opposite. Tani said, Honda-san had to hold back and bear so much during that one. Tamblyn was such an asshole. Unquote. Tamblyn apparently felt his lines in the film were so bad that he improvised replacements. And Saperstein, who chose to replace Nick Adams with Tamblyn, later said Tamblyn was a royal pain in the ass. So everybody agreed that Tamblyn was a pain in the ass. What's interesting about this, when you watch the dubbed version, Tamblyn's speaking English, and they've dubbed him in English. And there's some question as to whether he was dubbed by someone else or dubbed by himself. I've heard so many different stories. One story is that the original track was lost. Another was they decided to remove references to Frankenstein, and so then they had to redub it without that. But Tamlin didn't know what his original lines were, so he made up the new lines. That's what he claims. There's also one that they tricked him. He was such a pain to work with. They just gave him a table read to read through and then secretly recorded it and used that so that they would get the exact right lines. Whatever the case is, both the Japanese and the Americans agreed Tamlin was a pain in the butt to work with. So he plays Dr. Paul Stewart in this. And then Goro Mutsumi voices Paul in the Japanese version. We also have Kumi Mitsuno as Dr. Akemi Togawa, Kenji Sahara as Dr. Yuzo Majida, Nobuo Nakamura as Dr. Kita, Jun Tazaki as the army commander, Hisaya Ito as police chief Izumida, Kip Hamilton as a club singer. That's like Carol Burnett's sister-in-law, by the way.
We gotta talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yu Sakita as Sanda, the benevolent brown Frankenstein, and one of the film's main protagonists. Haruo Nakajima as Gaira, the green Frankenstein, the malevolent clone of Sanda, and the film's main antagonist. And Nakajima is also the famed actor who played Godzilla in like almost a dozen of the early Godzilla films. Principal photography began in May of 1966 and wrapped in June of 1966, with effects photography concluding in July of 1966. It was made really quickly, with Kimura's final draft on the screenplay dated April 23rd, 1966. Honda shot the film's dramatic footage between May 9th and June 4th, and Tsuburaya's special effects crew finished mid July. The War of the Gargantuas was theatrically released in Japan on July 31st, 1966, followed by a theatrical release in the United States on July 29th, 1970, on a double bill with Monster Zero. The film inspired parts of Quentin Tarantino's 2004 film Kill Bill Volume 2, such as a miniature shot of Tokyo made specifically for the film and the fight scene between Uma Thurman and Daryl Hannah, which Tarantino dubbed the War of the Blonde Gargantuas. Tarantino had screened the film for Hannah, and Hannah's character uses the word gargantuan several times. In 2011, manga artist Hajime Isayama cited the film's titular monsters as an inspiration for the Titans in his best-selling manga series Attack on Titan,
Oh yeah, yeah.
saying, quote, "When I was in the lower grades of elementary school, I happened to watch a film called Frankenstein's Monsters, Sanda versus Gaira, on a TV at a public hall during an evacuation drill. One of the two hairy monsters uprooted a tree and hit the other monster. That scene was really scary. It was a long time ago, so it may not be an accurate memory, but it certainly influenced the making of the Titans."
Very.
Unquote.
Oh yeah, and there's a scene with a subway where I'm like, it was like, oh wow, yeah. So I did, I watched Attack on Titans and was definitely I was like, the vibes are there. It's very, very much so. I'm like, this has got to have the DNA. This has to be part of it. So that was really cool. I like
Yeah,
that.
when filmmaker Tetsuya Nakashima was attached to direct the live action Attack on Titan, producer Yuji Ishida suggested that he watch War of the Gargantuas for inspiration. In 2012, American actor Brad Pitt said during the 84th Academy Awards that it was his inspiration to pursue acting was this movie. He liked the pathos of the good Gargantua. The film is parodied in the Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated episode Battle of the Humungonauts. And it has two hairy creatures resembling Sanda and Gaira. There's more connections to the film with Scooby-Doo. We'll talk about that later. Tim Burton has said that it is a favorite of his and his daughter's. And Mexican film director Guillermo del Toro cited War of the Gargantuas and its predecessor Frankenstein versus Baragon as two of his top favorite kaiju films, and cited the War of Gargantuas as influence on the opening of his 2013 film Pacific Rim.
Hey, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't realize he made that. I knew somebody had. I didn't realize him.
Yeah, and he may have something to say about Frankenstein too, but we'll leave that for a future day.
There we go.
Just a minute, folks. Yes, that's all it takes to visit our refreshment counter in the lobby. There you'll find popcorn and an assortment of popular candy bars to please every taste.
Okay, so in the past, when we've done Japanese films, we've done sake a couple of times, and we've also done Japanese plum wine on the show. But this time, I wanted to do Midori. Midori literally comes from the Japanese word green.
Nice.
It's a sweet, bright green colored liqueur made by Suntory and is flavored with Yubari King and muskmelon. It's manufactured in Japan, the United States, Mexico, and France. And it was released right around the time of these films. It was actually released in 1964 under the name Hermes melon liqueur, but its name was changed to Midori in 1978. It was exclusively made in Japan until 87. It's about 20 to 21% alcohol by volume. It's extremely sweet, so it's not usually drunk straight. It's usually used in cocktails.
Yeah.
Some of the most famous cocktails using Midori are the Japanese slipper, which is Midori, Cointreau, and lemon juice. The Scooby snack. I told you we'd be going with there'd be more Scooby Doo in this, which is Midori, banana liqueur, coconut rum, and pineapple juice.
Wow, sounds good.
And then there's what I had while I watched this, which is the Midori sour, which is Midori, vodka, lemon juice, lime juice, and soda water. But instead of doing lemon juice, lime juice, and soda water, I used a 7 Up. So I did Midori vodka and 7 Up. Essentially the same as doing lemon juice, lime juice, and soda water. Although Hermes melon liqueur was released by Suntory in Japan in 1964, it was renamed Midori for its release in the US market at Studio 54 in New York City in 1978 during a party held by the cast and crew of Saturday Night Fever.
Wow.
By 1983, Midori was distributed in 20 countries. In 2013, following consumer research, Suntory reduced the sugar content and began producing Midori with a redesigned label and frosted glass bottles. So if you can imagine, anyone has had it, it's incredibly sweet. It used to be even sweeter.
That's all.
I should say that fruit is very, very prized in Japan. And these muskmelons, they only grow in Japan and they're very rare and prized. So some of the more expensive ones can go for like $20,000 a melon.
Crazy. Now, mind you, this is the thing is that for every $20,000 melon, you're growing a whole bunch of them, and you're babying them all. Some of them are not going to make the cut, which would be perfect for making booze out of. But yeah, that they do. They have some very, by our standards, over the top, crazy expenses on these things. But I mean, I don't know what would be the American equivalent. Gold-plated guns. That's our thing, I guess. I don't know.
Anyway, I've got a bottle here, and right on the back, it's got the Midori margarita recipe, and it's also got the one that was popular. This was very popular, particularly with girls when when back in the 80s and 90s. I remember the melon ball, which is 1 part Midori melon liqueur, 1 part pineapple vodka, and 3 parts orange juice. Girly drink.
Hit me up. I love the girly drinks, man. Heck yeah.
Girly drink drunk. Yeah. Anyway, Midori sour. That is my recommendation for this. It is what you might drink in a rooftop cocktail bar in 1960s.
Oh yeah.
So we'll get into why I say that here in a second.
Who's that?
Yes, this is Dr. Stewart speaking.
We need your help. Sir, you've studied giant animals. You had one in captivity, didn't you?
Yes, that was 5 years ago. He might have been a young species of a gargantua.
Attention! All aircraft are to turn away! An alert! An alert! This is Tokyo Tower! Don't land!
northwest and has reached this point. We will move headquarters out to the field immediately.
Let him have it. Hey, look! Another one!
What's the matter?
The giant!
Get back to the car.
Get on.
Send all defense units to the beaches.
Okay, jump into this film. It's night. There's a fishing boat off Japan, and it's attacked by a giant octopus. Because you got to have a giant octopus in these things. And just about as it's about to strangle one of the crew members to death with the tentacle, it is itself attacked by a gigantic green-haired humanoid. See, green, get the connection? Green-haired humanoid creature. After defeating the octopus, the giant turns on the boat and attempts to sink it. Later in the hospital, there's a surviving crew member that says in terror that it was Frankenstein who sunk the ship. The Maritime Authority is hesitant to believe that the ship was sunk by this Gargantua, as they call it, and sends divers down to investigate the shipwreck. And they uncover the clothes of all the other crew members.
You got bite marks in them.
Bite marks in them, and they're chewed up and spit out. So they're not sure what happens, but soon another boat falls victim to the Gargantua, and a group of civilians finally see it when they're pulling a fishing net in. The Maritime Authority contacts Frankenstein expert Dr. Paul Stewart in Kyoto to ask him if it's possible the Gargantua is the Frankenstein that he raised at his institute. He basically dismisses the idea of it being Frankenstein.
Yeah. And we get to see a flashback. We have the same dynamic. Totally different guy, right? Totally different American. But like same dynamic where there's a beautiful Japanese woman who's his I don't know, colleague, assistant, girlfriend, and then there's another fellow who's a good-looking Japanese guy, and then there's this guy who, by the way, I was trying to remember where I recognize the actor from. He was the lead. He was the leader of one of the gangs in West Side Story.
Yes. Yeah. So there's actually a story that Mark Mothersbaugh told him that he was in his favorite film, and Russ Tamblyn assumed that it was West Side Story. It was, in fact, where the Gargantuas. People my age probably know him best as Dr. Jacoby from Twin Peaks. But yeah.
Yeah, he's like, no, that's not our boy. He wouldn't do that, and he died anyway. They refer back, and they show a flashback of him, and it's like a totally different kid, totally different look. He looks like some kind of like, I don't know, chimpanzee hybrid thing. Doesn't look like what I come to assume that the Frankenstein looks like from the previous film. He's much more of a like a Bigfoot creature, except he's little and he's sweet and he's nice and cheap, and we see him being taken care of by the nice lady.
Yeah. Anyway, so he says, no, it can't be that's not the Frankenstein I know. He says that Frankenstein died at Mount Fuji and would never live in the sea or eat humans. And on top of that, huge humanoid footprints in the Japanese Alps led Stewart to investigate along with his assistant, Akemi Togawa, while their colleague, Dr. Yuza Mamaya, travels to investigate a salvaged shipwreck that they think might have been attacked by a Gargantua. Stewart and Akemi find the footprints. They accept the possibility they were left behind by Frankenstein. Mamiya finds a mucous membrane left behind on the shipwreck. And analysis of the membrane shows that the creature's cells are almost identical to Frankenstein's. So, of course, they call in the JSDF. They assume that it must be Frankenstein behind these attacks. The green Frankenstein emerges from the waters at Haneda Airport and terrorizes the civilians. And this is where we get like a King Kong moment where he reaches down and grabs the person, but instead of like cherishing her or whatever, he eats her. You know,
Yes. Oh God.
when the sun comes out, though, it scares him off and he goes back into the sea. So Mamiya determines that bright lights are the key. So they send out word, turn on all the lights in the cities at night, to keep the green Frankenstein away, the Gargantua, the sea Frankenstein. But night comes and the Gargantua comes ashore in Tokyo. And this is where there's this rooftop lounge and we have Kip Hamilton singing "The Words Get Stuck in My Throat."
Yeah. I don't know what it sounded like when you were listening to it, but it sounded really not good when I was listening to it. I was like,
Oh, I thought it was great. It was like originally known as Feel in My Heart, and it was written by H.B. Barnum. It was originally performed in 1965 by Trini Lee Kearney on her album Romantic Inception. And that can be found on some bonus editions of this. But Kip Hamilton sings it in this, and it was later covered by Devo, basically Mark Mothersbaugh and his Bougie Boy alter ego. And they performed it live in 77, 78. It became a regular staple of their shows. But it wasn't actually released on vinyl or record or anything like that until their album Pioneers Who Got Scalped in 2000. That's when it finally.
oh, wait.
In 2010, the song was featured in the animated series Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated in the episodes Battle of the Humongonauts, which we already talked about, is a straight up homage to this movie. Also in another episode called Dance of the Undead, which came out in 2013. And they were both performed by Fran Southworth. And Barnum got credit in both of those. So there you go. I thought that was an interesting, albeit odd interlude to have in this.
And I will say, it's like the singer. She was she was a tall, beautiful lady. Very classy of the time. And this was like you said, a rooftop bar restaurant and everything. But I don't know whether it was just the recording I was watching or whatever. But it's like it was as if she was not really quite capable of hitting the notes. And I was like, wait, are they doing that on purpose? I don't know. I mean, I thought maybe it was going to be a thing where the creature was maddened by her horrible singing. So anyway, the song itself is quite delightful and nutty. I love that. And yes, there is the part where, haha, they grab her. He grabs her to devour her.
I just like that in the middle of this, they're just going to have this song.
That song, yeah.
They did the entire thing too, right? So
Yeah, good. They hit the whole thing, not just a little bit of it.
and it's very swinging 60s. Like it is Japan's equivalent of a bar that like Austin Powers would be hanging out in,
Absolutely. Yeah, no. Give me like Avengers feels or something like that. Something like that, yeah.
And the monster, of course, waits for the song to be complete before he attacks,
Hey, dinner and a show.
Yeah, exactly. Although he doesn't actually eat the singer. He picks her up, but then drops her.
He is blinded by the lights.
Yeah, in this, it's not fire, but light that Frankenstein doesn't like. So the JSDF goes with Operation L, a plan to use electromagnetic weapons, including a newly developed Type 66 maser cannon to kill the Gargantua. Maser cannons are microwave radiation cannons, like lasers, except for microwaves, so masers, right? They become a staple of the kaiju films and the Godzilla films and stuff like that from here on out. This is their first appearance, but they make other appearances throughout the Japanese kaiju films.
Well, I hope they didn't say, well, those were effective, so we should use those again. Because
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
no spoilers, but spoilers, they are not.
Well, you know, that's
That's part of kaiju films as well. It's like it would not be a kaiju film if you could just get it with the military.
well, normally I ask your opinion as an electrician on the revival of the creature, but in
Right.
this one they decided they were gonna like keep it away because they're gonna run a strong electrical current into Tokyo Bay to keep him away. All right. How feasible is this, and what would that actually do?
Okay, so I'm just gonna say I I have I can't even imagine how that would work. I'm gonna just be I'm like I don't see how that will work. I do think there's some things you can do with that, but the only way that it would repel anything is because I mean basically you're if you're doing that you're just making hydrogen and oxygen. But yeah, and then on top of that there is the well it's the electromagnetic field will repel some creatures because they are sensitive to that. But honestly, I'm just like I just was like, oh, okay, that's for one thing. We're in giant monster movie territory. I don't even yeah no. I mean, anything goes. Absolutely. We went straight to masers. We didn't even have like artillery. We're just going all the way in. By the way, though, I will say the music for the military, quite the bop if you're into military marches. But uh, yeah, I'm like I don't see how that will work. I don't know where you would even get all that power. But okay, now they have these series of things to trap this thing with the masers, the lights, the mm, I don't know. There's a lot. There's a lot of military maneuvering. Like this was a part that really dragged for me.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. We talked when I talked about the other movie. I said what didn't meet my expectations for a giant monster movie. This one so much more does, and not in the good way. You know the
Well, they come out with this Operation L, which I think it was also called Operation X in my version. Plans carried out with like tripwire cannons firing at the legs, and then the masers unleashing their electromagnetic rays. But as the JSDF has the Gargantua at their mercy, the brown haired Gargantua emerges from the forest and helps the green one and waves off the JSDF and helps the green one to safety. And Stuart and Akemi conclude that the brown Gargantua, which they call Sanda, which I think is like mountain, comes the word from the word mountain. He helps the other one. They realize that that one is the one that they raised, and they call the green one Gyra, which I think means sea in Japanese. So there's like the sea Frankenstein and the mountain Frankenstein, country mouse, city mouse, I guess. But they see that the cells are identical, and Mamiya proposes that the two gargantuas are brothers. Stewart says that's not such a bad analogy. He thinks that Senda escaped their lab and went to Lake Biwa, and some of his flesh tore off on a rock or something and grew into Gyra, because that's how you get monsters.
yeah. I'll be thinking like, is that your brother or your kid? I don't know. Either way, yeah, I can see you be like, oh, I should help this guy out. He's like me. Um,
And yeah, Sanda was raised by them, so he was like raised lovingly by Akemi, so he came all right, but the other one was like wasn't raised by people and grew up in the sea and uh yeah. So they were originally gonna blow him up, and they're like, you can't do that, that'll just like create millions of these things.
Well, yeah, and so yeah, there's I think the part with the tree where one wants the other with the tree is about to come up.
Yeah, so Santa takes him to Mount Fuji to tend his wounds, and Akemi and Stewart come face to face with Gyra as he's like menacing hikers, and they flee. Akemi falls over the side of a cliff and hangs onto a tree branch for dear life, and then she falls to the rapids below. Sanda hears her screams and rescues her, breaking her leg. And Akemi is overjoyed that Sanda recognizes her and, watches as he limps away.
Yeah. He dives, basically dives down to catch her, keep her from being hurt. This is a feature, it seems to be, of these Japanese Frankenstein movies, is the whole, you know, mother of monsters thing, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool.
He comes back, finds that the green Frankenstein has like killed these hikers. So he picks up the tree, which, by the way, apparently the effects crew didn't know which tree they were going to pick up. So they made like roots on all of the trees.
Wow.
So whichever one he picked up would, yeah. And he starts hitting him with the tree, which is, of course, one of the scenes that we mentioned earlier inspired Attack on Titan. Meanwhile, the humans are like, what can we do? They can't use explosives because that'll just create more of them. They came up with a really cool idea that they never further explored, but they said one of the army guys or something came up with the idea of like, hey, let's use napalm and suffocate them,
Right.
which sounded like a cool idea, but they never actually ended up doing that.
Also, though, I'm like, wait, if you have napalm, that's not going to explode them. That's just going to burn them to a crisp. That might be the way to go, because then you don't have little bits of Frankenstein regrowing into full Frankenstein.
Well, I think the idea was that the fire of the forest and everything would consume all the oxygen, and they would
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, they just kind of dropped that part, but
would have been a cool idea for a resolution. Anyway, Gyra ends up running away, but Sandra can't catch him because of his broken leg. Gyra just tears through the Fuji area and retreats into the sea where the JSDF can carry out its plan to destroy the Gargantuas. Gyra is no longer scared of light, so he could attack Tokyo again. Sanda shows up finally, and the JSDF attacks both of them. Even though Stewart protests this, and Akemi runs out into the street to find Sanda and warn him.
yeah, they end up in the subway.
Yes.
The first Frankenstein they encounter is the green one, which is the wrong one, and so they go running into the subway, and this is where it's like, I'm like, oh wow, I see this. I see where that inspired parts of Attack on Titan, because there's grabbing down the stairwells after her, trying to grab her, and he does get a hold of her, but guess what? Of course, the big teddy bear is as the her boyfriend or whatever responds, saves her again from the green meanie. Now the battle royale starts, where they fight each other in the streets.
Our monster battle of the week.
Yeah.
They fight on the land. They fight in the sea. It's like JSDF isn't holding back either. They're hitting them with the maser cannons and all of that. It eventually moves out into the ocean, and planes are like dropping bombs on them while they're fighting. And eventually this create an undersea volcano erupts.
Of course it does.
And because what other like epic way are you going to end this? And both Sanda and Gyra appear to die in the eruption, but neither of their deaths can be confirmed. And Akemi is despondent because Sanda basically sacrificed himself to save humanity.
Yeah.
I like this one even better than the last one. To me, this is like classic monster versus monster battle. It's got sci-fi weaponry employed by the army. It's just got like mass destruction. At one point, he's just like destroying houses, and it's just like crazy destruction. And of course, musical interlude. And of course, I was drinking Midori. So, which, much like this movie, isn't for all tastes, but I think it worked for me. So I give this a thumbs up, and I can see why for everyone from Nick Cage to Guillermo del Toro and, Quentin Tarantino and Tim Burton and all those guys, I can see why they like this film.
Okay. I'm gonna just have to depart with you on this one. I enjoyed the first one very much. This one, it felt so incomplete by comparison. I had no attachment to the monsters. Early on, I kind of enjoyed, even though I thought, the for no good reason, fight with the giant octopus. There was actually a cool scene that was a flashback from the sailor where they were swimming away from green Frankenstein, and he was coming after them, and that actually that turned out pretty good. I thought that was pretty good. Maybe it's because all the water splashing around obscured the bad stuff. But like anyway, ultimately it was too much of just monster movie ness for me. It was too much.
Wait a minute,
uh
wait a minute. Is that a thing? Too much of monster moviness?
because I mean, it was the little models being crushed, the I mean, like the special effects, which I'm like, I think you probably drew on the film to do that, or maybe just scratched with a pen. I don't know. There was so much of that, and then there wasn't a lot of heart to the film. I did think, I'm like, our American lead came out as smarmy. The musical really was cool. The idea of these two battling humanoid giants, from the same flesh was cool, very Cain and Abel or whatever. But like the part I like the overall is this tie between this mother figure and this, giant creature. And the last film did it better. So this didn't bring very much to me. But on the other hand, I'm a big fan of Attack on Titan. I thought that was fantastic. So there's something to be said to see about seeing the source code, the original stuff that inspired so many other things.
We never do that on this show.
Oh yeah, I mean, but unlike some of those times when I've seen that, like where I'm like, wow, that's where that came from, or like, ooh, I think that might be where that came from. This one didn't, in and of itself, did not appeal to me. I was like, I was what the platform I was watching it on. I'm like, wait, can I put this in double time? No, I can't. I gotta watch it straight.
See, I had that reaction to Attack on Titan. I don't think I made it all the way through the first season. I think eventually there's like going to be a female Titan or something. I'm not sure, but it's like I got bored where it just seemed like the same thing over and over again by about episode 10 or 11 or something. I don't know. I was just like, where are they going with this, you know?
Oh, that's fair. Now I have different expectations of series than I do from other things, and also there's a lot of mystery. There's a lot of Twin Peaks style mystery. What is actually happening? What is really going on? Which I've kind of outgrown that in a lot of ways, but in that particular case, I really liked it.
I think that there was also a real long time. This might have been a COVID thing. I forget what it was. There was a really long time between season one of Attack on Titan and like
Yeah,
season two. And they
that
just
is
lost me because I was waiting and waiting and waiting forever.
that is the thing. It's a thing where it's like you may love something, but then it's like I'm gonna have to go back and watch this again to know where we left off.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that can be hard because of the way things come out these days.
Is that thing over or is Attack on Titan still going on?
No, it's over for sure. And you'll have to decide whether you want to continue down that road on your own. I will not. I'll try not to bias you on that. So
Okay. I'm waiting for somebody to be like, you've got to see it. It gets so much better. You know? To me, it was just a zombie film, except the zombies were giant. Like, there's nothing new here. It's just giant zombies rather than little zombies.
for me, part of it is that they artificially set up. A lot of things are artificially set up, but like they're zombies, but they don't even know where they come from. They don't know. There's so many mysteries about them that it seems like uh, that's a lot of it is the mystery. We don't know where they come from. We kind of know how they work. Maybe we're still figuring that out. We have these weapons which are freaking cool as hell, even though they're absolutely ridiculous the way that.
That's another thing. I was like, well, like, and this is turning into the Attack on Titan episode, but it was like, okay, this has a like weird medieval Europe thing going on. This could be really cool. And then suddenly it's just like that goes out the window and they're doing all sci-fi ninja stuff.
Yeah, no, it's. I resisted watching it for a long time, and then I binged it a lot, and then yeah, the it is a thing. You will have to decide for yourself. I
Well, it's
cannot.
so popular with the kids. So anyway,
Kids today with their hair and their music and their funny clothes. Let me tell you, sir.
yeah, they could deal with some Monster Zero and some rooftop lounge singing. Anyway, okay. Well, that's one thumb up and one thumb down then, I guess. So you guys will have to decide for yourself if you have opinions on this movie. If you're in the camp of Will that this is not that great a movie, or if you're in the camp with me and Brad Pitt and Nick Cage. Either way, write us at GC8 Podcast. That's letter G, letter C, number 8 podcast at gmail.com. If you like it, like the show, just tell 2 other people about it. That's all we're asking. And we aren't going to bug you about that. Well, we probably will, but unlikely to after this year's over. We're just like trying to get through 2025 with everybody recommending us to 2 other people. So if you haven't done that yet, please do it. There's not that much time left this year. Until next time, this is Eric.
And this is Will.
Signing off.
I'm looking forward to, sitting in there with a little homemade wood stove and, my chickens.